Hi all, this video is about the sustainable development goals and its challenges. So sustainable development and SDGs. SDGs are nothing but the sustainable development goals which was framed by the United Nations. Sustainable development is a practical application of sustainability where we develop the planning and policies. It also seeks to harmonize the economic, social, and environmental. In economic, it is with the economic growth, the social progress, and environmental protections. So, United Nations 2030 agenda, as adopted in 2015, it operationalizes the sustainable developments through 17 sustainable development goals. SDGs spans the poverty eradication, quality education, gender equality, clean energy, climate action, and global partnerships. There are 17 sustainable development goals. These are the 17 sustainable development goals. Starts from no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace, justice and strong institutions, partnership for the goals. The principles of sustainable development are intergenerational equity, which preserves the resources for the future generations. Next one is the intragenerational equity. It is within the current generation, or it is the equitable distribution within the current generation. Then precautionary principles, which is the prevention to environmental harm. Next one is the polluter pay principle, in which the person who causes the pollution will bear the cost to manage the pollution. Next is the principle of integration, the environmental considerations built into economic and development decisions. The last one is the public participation, where we have a decision making based on the stakeholders and communities. The challenges of the sustainable development are conflicting priorities and population growth. The conflicting priorities: developing countries needs growth while protecting the environment responsibly. And then it also has to reduce the poverty, which sometimes gets conflicted with the natural resource protection. The development and conservation conflicts sometimes leads to delay in government policies and decision frequently, wherein the decision making gets delayed. And in the population growth, due to rapid growth in population, there is a demand for resources, housing, food and energy. The demand exceeds the sustainable supply development in many regions. Regional resource pressures differs greatly across different areas worldwide. The poverty and inequality and climate change is also a challenge for sustainable development. The poverty forces the communities into an unsustainable practices for short-time survival. Therein, the need of the today is satisfied by adopting the unsustainable practices. The deforestation, overgrazing, and unsafe resource extractions are some outcomes of the poverty and inequality, where the unsustainable practices are followed, due to which the environmental damage and poverty continues in a repeating cycle. And then comes the climatic change. The global warming threatens the agriculture, water resources and coastal settlements. The poorer nations suffers greater impact than the wealthier countries due to the climate change. These nations have historically contributed to least to the emissions, which is the carbon emission, which causes the global warming. The next challenge is depend on the financial and technology gaps and also the weak governance. So lacking financial resources and technology, many developing countries, they are lacking capital for cleaner industries. So there is limited access to renewable energy technologies, which slows down the transition. The investment gaps widens the divide between the nations. It increases the gap. So the weak governance and institutional capacities, wherein the corruption and weak enforcements of environmental laws are common. Poor coordination between the policies and undermines the implementation. Institutional capacity is a prerequisite for lasting change. Then comes the consumption patterns and globalization pressures. Unsustainable consumption and production is one of the challenge of the sustainable development, where the development or the developed nations consumes more, putting pressure on global resources. Throwaway culture increases the waste generation, and environment pollution is also caused rapidly. Production often ignores the true environmental cost which is involved. And due to the globalization pressure, globalization spreads technology, but also it increases the resource exploitation globally. Polluting industries often moves to developing countries for protection. Local cultures and ecosystem may disappear due to the globalization process. Next comes the measuring progress and political will. Under the measuring progress, we have the measuring and monitoring progress. The reliable data and the standard measures are often unavailable globally. The measuring progress across the countries remains difficult and inconsistent. The weak monitoring reduces the transparency and accountability in implementations. And moving on to the political will and international cooperation, the global cooperation needs a strong long-term political commitment from the government for proper sustainable development implementations. So different national interests will delay the agreement on the global policies. Example, countries disagree over the emission reduction targets and the responsibilities. Thank you.